One of my favorite videos that I've made in the past was the designing an entire custom deck and then we fight video that I recorded with my girlfriend. If you haven't seen it, it's here. I think it's really good. In it, what we did was we pitched cards back and forth at each other until we had 6 each. Then we made 4 copies, put them in a deck, and boom, we had a fully custom deck in pretty small amount of time. So I want to do that again. I'm not going to be doing this with my girlfriend and actually doing gameplay, but I do want to talk about this idea of being able to build an entire custom 40 card deck. Let's be clear, this is supposed to be more like limited gameplay really quickly. And there's something really interesting about this design process of when you know all 6 of these cards are going to be the only cards in your deck, what do you do? Now, there is something about the idea of pitching 1 card at a time from that original video. It meant you weren't looking backwards. You were only going forward. I'm not tinkering with 6 cards until I have a perfect deck. I am designing 1 at a time, and so every future card has to fill in any gaps that I missed in the past. That's the challenge. I don't really have a plan here, and I'm just gonna see what I can come up with. So that does mean this is a 6-card video, but it's supposed to be quick. It's supposed to be easy. I'm not going to stress about these too much. What about a goat deck? That sounds fun, right? Okay, so first card. When I think goats, I think white. I don't know if I want to do a mono white deck or not, but let's start there. Maybe like white black. I could see something interesting going on there. Let's start with a goat. It has either a sacrifice this effect or a when sacrificed effect or when dies effect. One of those 3. I want to make a deck that's like cares about goats, not just like cares about killing goats. Yeah, maybe I'm going in the wrong direction with this. I would love to do a thing where goats care about like lands, like they're grazing on lands. That would be cool, like a green-white goats deck. All right, clearly I have no ideas yet. I'm gonna keep thinking. Okay, I think a different direction. Plan is sort of a green-white control-ish deck that is gonna use goats to cultivate land to then ramp into something and then have like a big end goal, like some way win condition, right? That's sort of the plan for these 6 cards. So I think I want to start not with a goat, but with like a pasture land farmer person, someone who's going to make the jokes. Something like the Kithkin Springjack, whatever that one's called. They make 0/1 goat tokens. And 0/1s, of course, are not super useful, so the rest of the cards in the deck are going to have to be about how to make those valuable. I'm thinking, honestly, something that's just like 2 mana 1/2 that can tap to make a 0/1 goat. So that's it. If they till the land, they get to the goat. Maybe actually instead have it be something like, when this creature becomes tapped, create a 0/1 goat, and then the ability tap. Ooh. Could they tap to make mana? Is that too much? I'll have to think about it. Okay, card 1. Sensitive Goat Herd. They are a 2 mana, 1/2, I don't know, Kithkin. Let's go with Kithkin. I think that's fun. Peasant, I guess, that says goats can't block, or goats you control can't block. When this creature becomes tapped, create a 0/1 goat, and tap add colorless. It's a single point of colorless, but it's also making 0/1 goats. But those goats can't block as long as they're alive. They are going to be like, no, don't attack my goats, fight me. That's the flavor there. And then later we can do something with those goats, but I don't want this to just be, you make infinite jump blockers. That seems like a little bit too good. And I think normally you would have this situation where wizards would say like, oh, create a token that can't block, right? That sort of thing. But I really want to be able to use the pre-existing goat tokens, and goats have only ever been on a 0/1 token before. So I think it's fun to use that token, use what we already have. You know what I mean? All right. So we got our basic cheap creature down. Probably gonna have to come back with some 1-drop later, but until then, I'm thinking about, okay, we're making a bunch of bodies, but we can't block with them. What can we do? And I start thinking about the Colossal Plow Giant Ox thing from Kaldheim. If you don't remember this, it was a vehicle that could be crewed for 6, which was really expensive, and then it could tap for mana once it was crewed, if I recall correctly. Something like that. Now, when it attacks, you make... I don't remember. That's not important. What's important is they also printed the Giant Ox, which was an 0/6 that could crew vehicles using its toughness. Very interesting. I like the design. What I'm thinking is a vehicle that's more low-end. The Colossal Plow is too expensive. Just a normal plow. A normal plow that says creatures can crew this with their toughness instead of their powers. So this lets us tap down our guy, which we just made, that produces stuff without having to have them attack. That could be interesting, but they already want to be doing that. So what does the vehicle do? I don't really know. We can also use it just to like block, right? If the goat can crew the vehicle, then the vehicle can block. That's something, but probably not really what we're going for. So I want to make a plow, a pretty simple plow. The obvious thing to do is to make like white mana, but I don't know. I'm not entirely sure if that's like impactful enough. I keep coming up with these like, well, just keep making mana and eventually I'll have a top end, which is like a fine design for a deck. I just don't know how much texture it has. I'm not sure how interesting it is, but that's the direction I'm going so far. Similarly, and I know I'm now bleeding into a third card, and not instead of finishing one card at a time, which was kind of the point, but whatever, it's where my brain's going. Some other, like, person directing the goats and such, I think would be a fun bit, where it's something like, whenever a goat you control becomes tapped, do a thing. And so the goats could just attack as 0/1s if you really want them to attack that way, but we have this tap outlet of the vehicle as well. So something in there feels right. Anyway, I think that's where I'm going. So if they have that in mind, again, I don't know what the effect would be. Whenever, do what? We don't need that yet. We need to figure out this one first, which is the boring plow. And it either makes planes or makes mana. There's like no reason for it to do anything else. I guess I could get you some life, but whatever. Alright, something like Humble Plow, a 3-mana colorless artifact vehicle 0/3 that says this may be crewed by creatures using their toughness instead of their power. Whenever this creature attacks or blocks, target land you control gains. When this land is tapped for mana, produce an additional mana of any color, or something like that. It also has crew. I feel like crew 1 is the most appropriate, but not very interesting. So let's say crew 2, but let's also throw on an ETB that lets it produce 2 goats when it enters. Maybe it shouldn't be an all goats deck. Maybe this is like livestock deck, right? Because I feel like the ox thing makes more sense than goats. Maybe it's not Humble Plow. Maybe it's like Kithkin Plow, because they're all about them goats. Sure. Maybe the Kithkin Plow enters and creates a 1/1 Kithkin and a 0/1 goat, and then it crews for 2. Yeah, let's go with that. That sounds fun. So I talked before for my third thing, maybe having something to do with when a goat you control becomes tapped. Kithkin Herdmaster type character that says something like, and this has been very white so far, at least in design mentalities. Let's move more into green. How about whenever a goat you control becomes tapped, the next creature that enters the battlefield under your control this turn enters with an additional +1/+1 counter. Does that work? I think that functions, right? So as you're rallying your goats, it's not producing mana because we already have a lot of that. I don't want to do that too much. Instead, we're getting extra counters. Because I also didn't want just like to buff all the things. I think that just too much buffing feels not the style I'm going for. I'm not going for like big army crush people, but I do want to lead into this top end. Instead of just everything ramping to one big top end, this is going to supplement that top end in a different way. I think, again, I might want them to, like, enter with a couple of goats. That's fun. And the question becomes, do they only care about goats? And I think, yeah. I think they enter with, like, 1 or 2 goats, and that's what they do. I'm pretty happy with that design. I think I'm just going to keep following up the ladder and make it like a 4 cost. Maybe it's legendary. It kind of gives me a legendary vibe, even though this design premise, the make 6 cards, that's your whole deck, does encourage you not to do legends. So I don't know. Actually, I think it should be. It sounds like it could be really, really scary if you don't make it legendary. So I am going to make it legendary. I've decided. Maybe it needs some rider to make it so that there's less feel bad. That's what I really like about designing with a result in mind. It's like why designing for a draft environment or designing for Jumpstart, as we saw with Foundation Jumpstart, encourages different designs than they are when you design in a vacuum. And I think that's really, really cool. And so this is telling me, okay, if I do a legend, how do I make that still useful when it's eating up an entire slot of my 6 cards, right? So legendary creature, if it's legendary, I should give it a name. I think that this will basically be a legendary version of the Springjack Shepherd. It is a 4-mana 1/2 Kithkin Wizard. Wow, I didn't know it was a wizard. Is that true, or did they get Oracle that out? No, Kithkin Wizard. Cool. Do you think you could do something? I bet you could really easily make a mechanic, like make it like an ability word that's something like, if this dies to the legend rule, do something. Which I'm actually kind of amazed that Wizard hasn't done that. That feels really up their alley. Huh. All right, I got my really stupid idea. So we've got our Springjack Herdmaster, whatever it is. They're a legend. They're 4 mana. They're green and white. Okay, cool. They read, when this enters, create 2 0/1 white goat creature tokens. If this creature is not on the battlefield, create an additional 2 of those creatures tokens, something like that. Now, I don't know if this works exactly. I don't know if there's precedent for this exact wording, but the idea to me makes sense. It's like, it enters, legend rule will sacrifice it before this effect resolves, and then they check the if. I think maybe that doesn't work because there's like a intervening if statement. I'll have to look in to make sure that's right, but I'll find some wording to make that check to see during the ETB if you legend ruled or not. That's the idea. Cool? Cool. Then, if it didn't legend rule itself, you just still get your 2 0/1s, and then it has whenever a goat you control becomes tapped, the next time a creature enters on your battlefield under your control, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter. Boom. Beautiful. Love it. Its body is probably a 2/3. Great. That's 3 out of 6 designs. That means I need to use the next 3 to fill in all the cruft. I definitely want at least 1 to be a big top-end threat that we're leading to, which I hope to be a giant goat, because that sounds fun, which means I have 2 that need to be like removal, protection, maybe card draw, that kind of stuff. So let's figure it out. All right, it's removal time. I love removal, and I feel it's necessary, so here it comes. Now, we don't necessarily need, like, non-land removal. It could just be like creature-based removal, and not creature-based, creature-targeted removal, and you just die if there's an enchantment that hoses you. Oh, I hate it when there's just an enchantment that hoses you and you can't do anything about it. Screw it. We're doing non-land. I want to do like O-ring style effects. I love me my O-rings, but I also would like it to be land stuff, because I think that's a fun way of white doing removal. That said, I think we're veering more white than green, so maybe green removal? Green removal's like bites, though. I don't like bites. I think they're boring. I don't like damage-based removal. We're not doing it. We're not doing damage-based removal. We are on the farm. We are going to recruit somebody. Yeah, this is Swords to Plowshares, but they're working for me now. That sounds like, that sounds bad, actually, when I say that out loud. Yeah, I mean, inherently it's against their will. I can't do that. It doesn't check out. I'll have to think about this some more. Okay, I'm focusing way too much on the theme of goats and stuff. And we did see that the Springjack Shepherd is actually a wizard, so let's just make it a spell. It's just some spell. This is like the spell that they use to drive off, like, coyotes or whatever, right? It's like, go away sound, big boom. Yeah. Okay, so I did a little bit of research to see what is an appropriate removal tool for green. And I wanted to not use damage, I wanted to not use just straight up destroy, and I found a couple of options. Now, yes, just because there's one card of precedent doesn't mean, like, that's something that is really in the color identity and shouldn't really be used all the time, but whatever. This is just for fun, and I found Deglamour, which says, choose target artifact or enchantment, its owner shuffles it into their library. Ooh, that's fun. Is that green? Not exceptionally, but, like, cool. I think that's a really cool, fun effect. So I would like to do that. I would like a non-land permanent removal spell that shuffles it in, which is maybe like a lot. I kind of want to say like shuffles it in or puts it on the bottom. And this is like a howling horn or something, right? This like blast them away kind of effect. But how strong should that be? Because normally green can't really hit creatures. I was thinking maybe I'd do something where it's like It's a kicker spell, and if you kick it, you're allowed to target creatures with it, and if you don't kick it, then you can only hit enchantments or artifacts. Okay, how about something like Drive Off, a 4-mana green instant that reads, this spell costs 1 less to cast if you control 3 or more creatures, and then reads, choose target non-land permanent. Its owner shuffles it into their library. It's a bit of a weird effect for green, but I think they could use it. I think that's neat. Cool. That gives us 2 more left. I think I'm going to do the big bad next, the like top end, big, stupid creature, giant goat type effect. And then the last one will be my flex slot for whatever else we need, whatever is missing. Okay, cool. Okay, so top end time. I'm thinking like 8 cost, 8/8 trampling goat, right? That's kind of the baseline that I'm thinking of. And I think it's just the idea is that you're gonna ramp into it. It's not having an inherent way of discounting itself. 8 mana, 8/8 trample is not a very good thing yet, so I also want to sort of loop in a sort of Crater Hoof effect. If you look at, what's it called, Pathbreaker Ibex, I think it is, it has this sort of Crater Hoof style effect, except for instead of ETB and haste, it is just when this attacks. Oh, there's a cat pushing at my door. Hi! So instead it's on attack, you get this sort of effect, and it doesn't have haste, so it's a bit slower. I do want this to be impactful on the turn it comes down, and I do love the idea of it, like, buffing all of your goats. I like this play pattern of, no, the goats are not here to fight, no, they're not here to fight, they can't even block, don't even worry about them, and now they're trampling in for a bunch of damage. That's cool, that's rad as heck. So, yeah, something to do with that. So let's see, something like, it's an 8 mana, green and white goat creature. It has an 8/8, and it says, when this creature enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 goat for each goat you control. So at bare minimum, it will count itself, and you'll get 1 extra. Then, other goats you control have power and toughness? The idea is that you're gonna get a lot of goats, so if they're all, like, huge, I think that's a little bit silly. But I wouldn't mind just, like, your goats have +3/+0 or something. All right, sure, yeah, your goats have +3/+0. There it is, done. Weird effect, but I'm into it. I think it sounds fun. And they have vigilance too, why not? Wait, is that a non-bow? Because don't you want to be tapping your goats? Oh yeah, I guess kinda. +3/+0, and the first time they're tapped in a turn, untap them? That would be nuts, because then you tap and tap. I'm cool, that's great, why not? Good point. Why not be nuts? That's fun. We like it. It's cool. I'm personally not a huge fan of just triggers once per turn effects, but I do like ones that trigger at a specific time that only happens once. So it inherently, it's like when you draw your second spell, only ever happens once. That's sort of the thought process, and that leaves me with 1 card left. And I do think having a 1-cost card would be beautiful. So I guess what I want is 1 cost. I want it to do something on an empty board, so it's a turn 1 play, but I also want it to do something not on an empty board. So I'm thinking something like 1 cost, create a 0/1 goat token, or sacrifice a 0/1 goat token. That could be kind of cool. I don't know if that's really appropriate for the colors, but it could be like a green thing. Maybe it's green-white hybrid. Create a 0/1 goat, or creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn. Is that too good? I'll have to compare it to existing cards. You know, I was ready to say that it was too much. Almost every 1 mana gain hexproof till end of turn spell targets one thing, but Surge of Salvations does do it to your whole board for only 1 white. I think it seems fine. I still think probably it should be like up to 2 or something like that instead of it being all, so I'm gonna do that just as a limiter, but yeah, turns out Surge of Salvation is precedent for go nuts. So yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna say 1 mana, it needs to have a name that feels appropriate to being 2 different modes. I kind of want it to just be called like Pasture Serenity or something. This is like, again, like one of the wizards, the Springjack is casting it, so like Springjack Nurture. How about that? Springjack Nurture is a 1 mana green or white spell. That's a hybrid mana. Instant speed. Create a 0/1 goat, or Up to 2 target creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn. That's it. Easy does. How often are you going to make the 0/1 goat? Probably never. So is there anything I missed? That's 6 cards. I got early body. I got a 1-drop. I've got a middle tier body. I got a legend that does some cool things. I got a top end, and I got removal. Sounds good. Let's make up these cards, and yeah, I'll show the finals on the screen. I guess, yeah, I guess we just cut showing the finals. Hey, thanks for joining me on this one. This was kind of a weird video. I almost made a sorry I'm not doing a video this week, guys, kind of video, and this kind of popped into my head, and it only happened because I let myself be really hyper relaxed and laid back with it. And if this is a style that you're actually really enjoying, then great, because I often feel like I put way too much work into these videos, and it's not really worth it. So if something that's way more laid back like this is to your liking, then, well, then we both win. So have a good night, everyone. I've been Darcy Boots. I will see you next time. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Have a good night.